Experiments in Personal Finance AI, Part 3. This is a continuation of a couple of other personal finance experiments I've done in the past. And I previously wrote about a failed experiment, as well as my enthusiasm for portfolio analysis via AI chat. So, chatbots are very, very good at telling you tax-sensitive ways to analyze and allocate your net worth across different portfolios, and exactly how much you are incurring for investment management, with implications for saving money through simpler, more passive strategies. So I am basically totally astonished at how accurate, relevant, and fast, like 20 to 40 seconds, the answers are. My response to the advice is essentially, that's exactly what I've said to the client, except AI said it even better. The punchline of the story, which I wrote for the benefit of using the precise information of using one of my clients, is saving like $500,000. That's the potential cost savings over 20 years. The clients have paid me a tiniest fraction of that amount. So I feel confident that if they followed my advice, supplemented by AI wisdom, that they will enjoy extraordinary financial benefit. So I added to the complexity of the early experiment by uploading a second and third spreadsheet of the same client, and portfolios that were held in tax-deferred retirement accounts, like a SEP account or an IRA account. Interestingly, to me, the portfolios were in a spreadsheet that had different information columns and labels from the first portfolio. So it doesn't matter. AI can handle all of it very easily. In 38 seconds, it integrated the next two portfolios to the first and began to offer comprehensive tax analysis and advice. So this is like a quote of its initial analysis. My first impression, the new accounts actually strengthens my initial conclusion because it remembers the previous conversation. Again, the AI saying this. The advisor appears to be using the retirement accounts differently than the taxable account. That's generally good practice. For example, I can already see the SEP IRA emphasizes ETFs such as emerging markets, ex-China, equal weight S&P 500, developed international, small cap equity index, and it goes on. These are the kinds of holdings that advisors often prefer to place inside tax-deferred accounts, where rebalancing and fund distributions don't create current tax consequences. And then it goes on to further analysis. The taxable account, by contrast, contains individual stocks, treasury ladder, municipal tax-efficient positioning where applicable, long-term appreciated positions. That suggests the advisor is thinking at the household level, not simply filling each account independently. That's a meaningful positive. So basically what we get from that is AI is like, there's clearly a smart advisor helping this person do what it's doing. And then the AI goes on to revert back to trying to simplify the portfolio while adding a layer of sort of tax-sensitive nuance with the following. And again, I'm quoting the AI again. What I would probably recommend, if the clients wanted to move towards indexing, I would likely recommend something like Schwab US Broad Market ETF 50%, Schwab International Equity ETF 25%, Schwab US Aggregate Bond ETF 25%. So it's basically like created, I'll keep quoting the AI. It says, but I would not necessarily hold those percentages in each account. Instead, I'd use asset location inside the taxable account, mostly US equities and any desired individual treasury holdings for tax efficiency. Inside the tax-deferred IRA SEP, most or all of the bond allocation plus international equities, since interest income and foreign fund distributions are sheltered from current taxation. This approach keeps the overall allocation at 50, 25, 25, while potentially improving after-tax outcomes. So that's the end of the quote from the AI. And now me saying the following. Honestly, this is pretty standard investment management advice, but it's definitely beyond most non-professionals investors' knowledge, and it would push a non-professional household investor to consider this sort of basically second order complexity. The idea that you can think not just about stock and bond allocations, but the proper sort of tax efficient type of account for stocks and bonds. And really, color me impressed. Not everyone would know how to go about doing asset location, but it would go a long way to suggesting the direction that non-professional household investors should look, and that itself is like very, very valuable. The next big headline that I think is worth mentioning and further in this experiment is cost savings. So I wanted AI to provide a quick analysis of the cost differences between using the advisor instead of choosing a really radically simple self-managed portfolio like the 3 ETF portfolio. So within a few seconds, the chat thing comes back, and here I'm quoting: annual costs, assuming a combined portfolio value of 2.8 million. This is again my clients. Advisor fee of 1%, 28,000. ETF expenses 0.04%, 1,100. Annual savings about $27,000. So that savings amount, again I'm quoting, that savings alone is meaningful in retirement. It covers a significant portion of annual spending without requiring additional investment risk. So that's the AI saying it. And then it basically goes, the AI, what I would say metaphorically, goes in for the kill. It's like, here's the 20-year retirement comparison. Let's assume initial portfolio 2.8 million, gross investment return 7%, annual withdrawals 7%. Same asset allocation in both approaches, tax-aware implementation in both cases. Under those assumptions, investor performance should be very similar before fees. The principal difference is the ongoing cost. Gross return 7%, annual cost 1%, to the advisor cost, or a 0.04% index cost. That's very, very loud. I'm disturbed by how loud that is. Apologies to anyone watching this trying to hear me. So that roughly 0.9% annual advantage compounds over time. A reasonable estimate is that over 20 years, the advisor-managed approach would incur on the order of $500,000 to $600,000 in advisory fees, whereas the indexed approach would incur roughly $20,000 to $30,000 in ETF expenses. The combined effect of lower fees and the additional compounding could leave the indexed approach ahead by approximately $600,000 to $1 million, depending on the sequence of market returns and withdrawals. The exact, and there I'm still quoting the AI, the exact outcome will vary, but the difference is large enough that fees become a first order consideration rather than a rounding error. And if you're reading all these words and don't totally understand what the AI is getting at, that's fine. But you should at least be inspired to ask them follow-up questions like, how much am I paying for investment advisory work? How much am I paying for transactions? How much do I pay for the funds I currently own? If I plugged some of this information into my AI chatbot, would the potential fees be a meaningful amount? What about costs not just considered for 1 year, but also over the coming decade? The answer is yes, they will be a meaningful amount. The differences pointed out by the AI chatbot are so big and astonishing that even if the advisor is adding extraordinary value in terms of behavioral finance advantages, help with withdrawals, and retirement income planning, a reasonably competent household should be thinking kind of carefully about the advantages and disadvantages of advisory help versus self-direction. You save $27,000 a year and here and $27,000 a year there, and pretty soon you're talking about $500,000, which most people I know would prefer to have in their accounts rather than not. Sorry about all the noise.